A consuming fire. Enduring Faith Bible Curriculum, this is Unit 6, Lesson 2. Our story today comes from 1 Kings chapter 18. Hear the word of the Lord. When Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, "Is it you, you troubler of Israel?" And he answered, "I have not troubled Israel, but you have, and your father's house, because you have abandoned the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. Now therefore send and gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, and the 450 prophets of Baal, and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent to all the people of Israel and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, "How long will you go limping between two different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him." And the people did not answer him a word. Then Elijah said to the people, "I, even I only, am left a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let 2 bulls be given to us, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull, and lay it on the wood, and put no fire to it. And you shall call upon the name of your God, and I will call upon the name of the Lord, and the God who answers by fire, he is God." And all the people answered, "It is well spoken." Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose for yourself 1 bull and prepare it first, for you are many, and call upon the name of your God, but put no fire to it." And they took the bull that was given them, and they prepared it, and called upon the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, "O Baal, answer us." But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped around the altar that they had made. And at noon Elijah mocked them, saying, "Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is musing, or he is relieving himself, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and must be awakened." And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their custom with swords and lances, until the blood gushed out upon them. And as midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation. But there was no voice. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come near to me." And all the people came near to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been thrown down. Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord came, saying, "Israel shall be your name." And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord. And he made a trench about the altar, as great as would contain 2 seahs of seed. And he put the wood in order, and cut the bull in pieces, and laid it on the wood. And he said, "Fill 4 jars with water, and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood." And he said, "Do it a second time." And they did it a second time. And he said, "Do it a third time." And they did it a third time. And the water ran around the altar and filled the trench also with water. And at the time of the offering of the oblation, Elijah the prophet came near and said, "O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are a God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back." Then the fire of the Lord fell, and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, "The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God." And Elijah said to them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Let not one of them escape." And they seized them. And Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slaughtered them there. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Elijah, the great prophet, he is the only prophet left. he comes to the king, the wicked king Ahab, and he calls forth all of the false prophets, the false teachers, the false prophets of Baal and Asherah. There are 450 false prophets that come. And Elijah suggests to the people, why are you going between these two? Either it's the Lord who's God or the Baal is God. Pick. Like, how will we know? And he proposes, let's have two bulls brought, and you prophets of Baal, you can take your bull and you can prepare it and you can call upon Baal. And when Baal brings his fire down and he consumes the bull, you will know that Baal is true. But if he doesn't, then you know he's not true. And I will take the other bull, the one that you don't pick, and I will cut it up, and I will call on the name of Yahweh, the living God, and if he rains down fire, then we know that he is the living God. And I'll let you go first. And so the prophets of Baal select their bull, and they cut him up into pieces, and they put him on the altar, and they call upon Baal, and they call upon Baal. From morning till noon, they call upon their false god, and there is nothing. And Elijah mocks them. He says, maybe he's on a journey, or maybe he's in the bathroom, or maybe he's asleep and he needs rousing. And so they even go to extremes to take their swords and their spears and they cut themselves so that their blood can be put upon the bull too. That maybe in the midst of their flagellation, their fasting and their deep pain of this experience, it would rouse Baal to rain down fire upon their bull. But at the hour of oblation, a specific hour that sacrifices were given, Elijah takes his turn. And it's very interesting. We should note that he takes time first to rebuild the altar to the living God, to Yahweh, that had been knocked down. And he does so with 12 stones, one for each of the tribes of Israel, the sons of Jacob. And he builds the altar, and then he places wood upon the altar, and he places the bull upon the altar that he has cut up into pieces. And then he digs a trench around the altar, enough for, is it 2 seahs of flour? Let me make sure. 2 seahs of flour, which tells us is about 7 quarts or 7.3 liters. And so this trench is there. And then he asks the servants there to pour water over the sacrifice and onto the wood. And then he asks them to do it a second time. And then he asks them to do it a third time. And so everything is really wet. And of course, things don't burn very well when they're wet, right? This makes things seem a bit extreme and impossible, right? And then he calls upon the name of the living God. Now, let's look at this word one more time. He says, O Lord, and really what he says here is, O Yahweh, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant. Answer me, O Yahweh. Answer me, that this people may know that you, Yahweh, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. Okay. They called upon Baal. He calls upon Yahweh. He uses the divine name, the name revealed to Moses at the burning bush, to call upon the living God. And so when he does so, he says his prayer. Fire comes down from heaven and it consumes everything. The bull, the wood, the stones of the altar, and even the dust, the dirt that was underneath the altar, and it licks up the water that's in the trench so that nothing is left. This is just absolutely cool. And so, of course, the people of Israel bow down and they see They see the work of God in their midst, that when the prophet of the living God calls upon his name, they see that the living God is truly living and dwelling in their midst, and that he does this thing to them and for them. And they bow down and they worship. And then Elijah calls together the prophets of Baal, and he chases them down to the brook Kidron, and he slaughters them there. Now this is going to cause great consternation by Jezebel and Ahab, and those all, of course, stories for next time. But we know that we have a God who listens to prayer. We have a God who is present in the ministrations of his servants, of his prophets, and of his pastors and apostles. That he comes in the proclamation of his word and in the sacraments which he has given, and that he is a consuming fire. And what does his fire consume? But it consumes our sin. It accepts our sacrifice, which is a contrite heart, a broken and a contrite heart, and it embraces us in love. And so this is great, especially as we're celebrating Epiphany. We know that we have a God who has revealed himself to the entirety of the world, that he has come to Gentiles, he has come to Houston, to you and me, in his word and sacraments, that he might destroy the power of the devil, the world, and our sinful nature, and give us life. All right. So perhaps 384, the hymn in our hymnal, Of the Father's Love Begotten, might be a good hymn to connect to for our kids. And it'll be in your bulletin, so you can, if you bring your bulletin with you, that's one of our hymns for the day tomorrow for the divine service on Epiphany 1. Of the Father's love begotten, ere the worlds began to be, he is Alpha and Omega, he the source, the ending, he of the things that are, that have been, and that future years shall see, evermore and evermore. Perhaps looking at, I think it's stanza 3. Let's look at this. This is he whom seers in old time chanted of with one accord, whom the voices of the prophets promised in their faithful word. Now he shines the long expected. Let creation praise its Lord, evermore and evermore. I hope you enjoyed the study of Elijah and the consuming fire. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. God's peace.